lots to learn. I'm going to try and get through, because we only have a little bit of a window, get through branding your empire. So without further ado, not that kind of empire. So our agenda for today is going to be, I have a little introduction, and we're going to talk about identity, your empire, the basics, our reach, and some merch. So first of all, I'm Tori Einher. I'm a self-published author of the Wings of Alchemy series. I'm also the owner and operator of Unscripted Chaos. I did go to school for business, marketing, and graphic design as well, and I do like to pride myself on that extra expertise because it's just what I'm passionate about and what I love, and I do feel like I do a really good job at what we're doing. So first things first, we've got our identity and our mindset. First thing we've got to really file in on is, who are you as an author? Who are you? What foot are you putting out into the public eye? One thing that I did for my launch party of when I did my first book was create this collage to introduce myself, of kind of just all these different things to kind of get to know me real quick in an interesting way. And what I recommend is finding about 5 characteristics that describe you. And they don't have to be super specific things, but I think that things overall are going to give you a little bit more of a broader feel. So when I go out into things, it's an autobiographical series, so I'm very authentic. I also am a real life fairy. That's just my lifestyle. So it's these things that cover a broad span of things for my brand. And you have to go into everything, every interaction, everything that you put out into the world with a good mindset. Your mindset is going to be so crucial, and you have to remember that you are an author. You're not a writer. Once your book is out, you are an author. Once your book is created, you are an author. So when you go out and you find an agent, you find a publisher, whatever you want to do, you have to have this mindset in mind, which is why branding is so important, because then you are putting yourself separate from what your everyday day-to-day life is, but you are saying that I am an author. Further than that, your business, you have a product, you are a person trying to sell a product. So you have to remember that you are a business, and that is why branding is so important, because you are a business, and you have to have the simple things like the basics. So step further into what your empire is. So now you've identified who you are, but what is it that you want to create? And you have to look at your goals, whether you want to publish books, whether you want to open a bookstore or create movies be made off of your books and things like that, host fantasy balls or conventions or just book club, whatever it may be. You have to figure out what your eventual goals are going to be and operate. No matter what size you're going to be, whether small or big, branding is still a crucial point, and you have to decide what you're doing right now to get to your eventual goal. What are you putting out there in the world right now to be recognized as someone who's going to be hosting those fantasy events, or be hosting that book club, or opening up a bookstore? Whatever it may be, how are you presenting yourself to the world to eventually get to that goal? Because that consistency across that timeline is going to set you apart from different things. And again, you're a business, so you want to, at the very beginning, operate as a business. It's not fake it till you make it. It's actually being present and being there until you get to that accomplishment. So we start off with our basics, our appearance, and that consistency to get to that timeline. You've got mood boards and logos. And I, as an owner of an actual company, have a separate logo, but even my author photo is going to be consistent across my different platforms. And it's not that complicated. I Googled purple color palettes because I was trying to figure out what goes with purple, but it isn't too far off and that kind of thing. And you can hop on Canva and get some great templates to kind of figure out what you want your logo to look like. There is a lot of assistance out there that you can just sit down and figure out what you want to do, figure out your look and your appearance. Consistency is key. You can see from my examples over here, and when you hop in my book, when I designed my Alchemy Fairy logo, I used this image. So then I take this image and I use it across multiple things. So I have different posts here, whether it's reviews or quick little posts for single things. This is a post that I put up so that people can see my future events. This I used for a newsletter. So whether it's like your newsletter, your website, whatever it may be, this photo is now, because it's part of my logo, it's going to be across a large span. So when they see that, they kind of think of me. And it's the same thing when it comes to fonts and accents. So your series font should obviously already be decided before you start book one, because not before you start book one, before you go into printing, but things like that. So whatever you're putting out there in the world, you want to have that consistency. So I picked a font that looked good on with all the numbers, so that the numbers on the side of my binding were good, and that looked nice and whimsical and fancy, because like it gives you that fantasy feel. So I went for my fonts and my accents. So I used this, I literally copy and paste it on all the things. So I have Canva Docs that has my same fonts and saved things like that. And so my book 2 goes into blue. So even though the change of color, you still have that consistency enough that it's recognizable that those are attached. But before you even read Wings of Alchemy, you can still tell that this is the same brand, this is the same company, the same series. And that should all transfer over into your website. I definitely recommend every author should have a website, especially when you start promoting your book. And I actually started promoting my book about when I started writing it, actually. So about 2 years before I published. I just got online and started talking about writing, and people could go to my website. This is a updated one because it is my company now, but you still have that consistency across all the platforms and easy access for people to look at. Further than visual consistency, you want your voice to be consistent. So again, we're going back to those 5 characteristics. So all these characteristics transfer into your personality, your tone, and your values. So whatever you kind of create, whatever you put out there. For example, when I'm talking authentically, sometimes I write a really long Instagram caption because I just want to be open and honest about what I put out there. And I want people to know that I'm a real person, especially with, like we discussed this morning, with the AI issues out there. It's like, no, I'm a real person and I really put work into this art. So you want people to feel that, just like you want people to feel that in your writing. You want people to feel that with what you put out to promote your writing. Further than that, because we are all authors, we have our genre. So for example, I'm a fantasy author, so you get a lot of whimsy and adventure feel and things like that. But I'm also a new adult, and that genre focuses on the very emotional, raw kind of things and the self-discovery. So a lot of the things that I put out there are encouraging other people to stick up for themselves or love themselves, different things like that, because that is the feel of my brand. That is the purpose of my series, and that is the purpose of my company, is to push that out into the world, which is where I get my mission statement. So again, depending on the size of your empire, you might not want to actually write a mission statement. But as a business, you want to have something in mind of what your goal is. Again, what are you doing now to reach your eventual goal as an empire? So I have the goal of creating a safe space for people, which is that authenticity, to encourage magic and adventure and things like that. So all 5 of those characteristics come through in what the eventual goal is of my empire. So your reach, how do we get to those people? First, we have to identify our audience. So again, like I said, I challenge you to actually think of 5 things, because that comes in hand so often. And that reach, obviously, as authors, we're all talking about looking for readers. But as a fantasy writer and the adventurous and the energy, I get the fantasy lovers, I get travelers. As my story talks a lot about 2 survivors and things like that. And I do the cosplay, I do the magic. Real life fairy comes over to the cosplay and the crafters because I'm making my own fairy wings and things like that. Social media can be so intimidating. I get that. It can be time consuming. That's absolutely true. But use it to your advantage. A decade ago, like even a handful of years ago, The indie authors out in the world did not have the same opportunities that we have. We can reach the entire globe on our phones. So the fact that we have this now gives us that opportunity to get our books out far places. My Beneath the Aurora Mountains is in 6 countries because of an ebook. You know, the possibility of ebooks and the possibility of just getting it out and branding it in that way. And you don't have to overcomplicate it. Have fun with it. Be yourself. Do what you enjoy. Do what you love. Talk about what you want to talk about, what your books talk about, and be active, interact. Again, going back to telling people that you are a real person. And how cool is it when you get to interact with the authors of your favorite books? So you want to be open and available to people like that, because every reader matters to us. We are not like the traditionally published. And even if you decide to go that route, I think each author is ultimately excited about every single reader. And you have to let them know that they are important to you. They're not just a number on a page. They're an exciting person that is reading your work, and that's amazing. I 100% think identity matters over niche. Again, be yourself, be who you are. I adventure a lot, I travel, so I talk about traveling, I cry on the camera, I do all these different kinds of things because this is just who I am, and this is already my life. So again, don't overcomplicate it. I just am like, oh, I'm writing right now. Maybe I should stick my phone up and get a little bit of content right now. So that way you can be real with people. And again, it doesn't have to be too complicated. You can just post what you enjoy. If you're not a fan of getting in front of the camera, there are other ways to post. I know a handful of authors that prefer to be behind the camera or like prepping things on Canva or things like that so that they can just talk to other writers and readers and things like that. I do a couple posts like that just to mix it up every once in a while, but I am the face of my brand. So again, it depends on who you are and what you want your empire to be. I'm going to be walking the red carpets one day, so I'm going to be the face of my brand, you know? Again, be yourself. Use your other talents and hobbies. This is a author that does her own character art as well, so her books aren't out, but she has so much buzz about her books already because she has very enticing characters to talk about already. And then, you know, be your brand. This is an author that has very elvish, and its vines are the theme. So all things green is her thing, just like me, all things purple. So people will recognize those kinds of things, or even see things and be like, oh, this made me think of you, because she's so well known as that. And she's a very successful indie author. One thing that I definitely recommend is doing something easy access. So a lot of people have Linktree. I use Beacons, which I do recommend. But I really love the Beacons because I can attach my playlist. I can attach videos, things like that. Whether it's when I used to do vlogging on YouTube, I used to put my most recent vlog. And I don't know if you saw up at the top. Let me go back a second. Up at the top, I have Indie Author Day, and that had a link right to our page about registering, things like that. So you can easily update it so that you can get the current events and things like that. And this is a good way to bring people to all things on your posts. But further than social media, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, all the things, you want to make sure that you as an author are not just present, but having that consistency like this across all where people find books. My book is listed on Barnes & Noble and Amazon, but I have an author page on Fable and Goodreads, which still has my author photo that all matches and still has my my author bio. So again, that consistency is key, because you don't want someone to find a different photo and be like, is that the same person? Am I looking at the right book? You want them to see like, oh yeah, that's Tori. I know who that is. And especially when you have purple. Easy to think. Again, that consistency is key. One thing that I continually tell my writers group is like that the first post, or the post that you put out there, could be the first one that someone is seeing. So you never know the first time that you're reaching a new potential reader or a new person. So you want every single one, whether have your handle on there, have your name on there, have your colors, your consistency. I created this little hack a little while ago. where I have a folder on my phone of the backdrops and colors that I use. So that way, when I go to post something or share like my reels and stuff, I can put a background behind my reel so it's not like an obnoxious color behind it, things like that. Or when I post text on my stories and I'm talking to people, I can use the colors that I always have. So it's always purple because you can't really get the right kind of purple on just like the skin. So that way you can just eyedropper it real quick and then you're good. Next, we have our in-person range. So as a fantasy author and a cosplayer, I go to fantasy balls, I go to Comic-Con, I go to Ren Fair. And you guys already took the first step, and you're here. So great job networking. You did a good job. So getting out and being seen and being heard is so crucial to getting your book out there, to being your brand, is putting a face to the book. Like putting yourself out there and being recognized as a author is really, really cool. And all of that networking leads to opportunity. For example, I was going to fantasy balls and fantasy events for a little while. And then I reached out to someone on social media that I saw was a new fantasy event. And now I'm an attending author at a fantasy ball. So again, don't overcomplicate it. It's not that difficult, but it's like creating a resume. So then when you reach out to someone, if they look at your page and they see like things kind of here and there, or you don't really have a website put together and it's just like kind of tossed up, they might not want to bring you on because they want to know that the people they're inviting to their events are going to be professional people who know how to handle a table, things like that. So honestly, resume is a great way to look at it. Of whatever you put out there, it's like a resume that is out for the presence. It's a public face. So let's talk merch. Now, don't lose me here because I know it can be super overwhelming, but we all have a product to sell. And that's our books. And let me get on a soapbox for a second because I took a long time to come to terms with the fact that this is my art. I spent the extra on the nice foil covering. I did a lot of, as we talked about in the publishing earlier, you have to figure out what you can do on your own and what you have to pay someone to do. And just because I did a lot of this on my own does not mean I shouldn't pay myself as the cover artist or pay myself as the person that designed the maps and things like that. A lot of time and energy went into this, and it's okay if it looks a little expensive to people, and if the price is like, oh, I don't know if I want to spend $20 on a book. But the thing is, this is a good quality book. I paid the extra for the nice print with the fancy binding and all that stuff, and it's okay. Just because you're an indie author does not mean you need to chip yourself away. You need to put a proper label on the art that you are putting out into the world, and that is okay. You are a business. You are putting out art into the world. It is okay to actually put an accurate price point on that art. Necessities that I think every author needs are stickers and bookmarks. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Again, the entire point of this entire thing is you can brand yourself easy. I use my artwork. This is a character art that I got done that is on my cover, and this is artwork that I designed. But again, if you're not into that kind of thing, if you get character art, whatever it may be, or your logos, or even one friend got his book cover printed as stickers. I use Sticker Euphoria, and I get these cute little stickers. Where'd they go? I get these cute little 2-inch stickers, 100 for $10. So really great little handout to get people interested and everything like that. Same for bookmarks. Last week at an event, I saw people walk in and they kind of looked at my table, and I'm like, hey guys, want some free bookmarks? And then they came over and bought a book. So it works as a great like invite to get people talking. And people love fairies. So I'm just like, hey, fairies, what do you think? And then they might be interested in getting your book. I do want to challenge you to go a little step further if your empire allows. But I think that logos, your artwork, whatever it may be, put it on a tote. I mean, how fun is that? Put it on a sweatshirt. I have this hat, and it's my favorite hat. Things like that. Like you can see that I have a purse and I have a phone case. So my phone case like screams right out immediately that like this is my brand. This is who I am. I have my sweatshirt. It has the alchemy fairy on it because I just love the alchemies. So again, that is all up to what your empire, what you want your goal to be. But I wanted you to challenge yourself. Remember that you are a business. Remember that you can accomplish so much, that we have a lot to offer and a lot available to us to expand these opportunities because of social media, because of Canva, simple things like that. So whatever you want your empire to be, don't be afraid to go out and reach it. Don't be afraid to step out and say, I'm a business, I'm an author, and this is my book. And it's really freaking cool. Thank you guys so much for coming. I will be at a table out in the book fair, so you are welcome to come over and ask me anything. And real quick, before we have to leave, I'll put my resources right up here and my QR codes over here if you want to scan and find me online.